All right, let's go to paragraph 7 and 10 of going out. Yesterday, we read about Min and her conditions at a factory where she was working in China as a 16-year-old and the unsanitary and unsafe conditions of all the women who work there. And today, we're going to continue on reading a little bit more so about her and her boss and the pressure of actually working there. So, as I read, I want you to try to annotate for some key details that support the main idea that says Min tries to quit her job, but her boss pressures her into staying for 6 more months. Okay? So, let's go ahead and begin at paragraph 7. After 6 months, Min went to her boss, a man in his 20s, and said she wanted to leave. He refused. Your performance on the assembly line is not good, said Min's boss. Are you blind? Even if I were blind, Min countered, I would not work under such an ungrateful person as you. She walked off the line the next day in protest, an act that brought a hundred yuan fine. The following day, she went to her boss and asked again to leave. His response surprised her. Stay through the Lunar New Year holiday, which was 6 months away, and she could quit with the 2 months back pay that the factory owed her. Min's boss was gambling that she would stay. Workers flood factory towns like Dongwon after the new year, and competition for jobs then is the toughest. So I wanted to support the idea that she tries to quit her job, but she's pressured into staying. Obviously, it says she wanted to leave, but he refused, right? So we have the idea of her wanting to leave. Then she walked off the line the next day in protest, an act that brought a 100 yuan fine. There's a little bit of pressure about staying here because it's very expensive to go against your boss. You're protesting against staying and protesting against the conditions, and you're actually fined for doing that. And he said stay through the Lunar New Year, right? And he would give her the 2 months back pay that they owed her. Obviously, that means that she's being pressured into staying because if you don't stay, you don't receive that pay. If you do stay, we will give it to you. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But now we can infer that the continuation of this text is going to be about life after her saying, okay, I will leave, and being pressured, right? How does the boss respond to her? What changes about her and her behaviors? What changes about his behaviors and life in the factory? So as I read this section, I want you to find key details that support this main idea. Go ahead and take a minute to write it down in your book, as you're going to have to go to your Google Doc and include 3 key details that best support it. It says Min's strength and determination help her to set positive goals and improve her situation, even when she gets little support from her family. Whenever I get a main idea like this, I stop and think about the points that I need to support. I need to support that Min is strong and determined. I need to support the fact that she doesn't get much support from her family. And I need to support possibly the fact that she stays positive and sets positive goals for herself in this situation. So she doesn't lose hope, right? Again, strength and determination. So there's a little bit there to support, but now as I read, I'm thinking of keywords I'm looking for, right? Her parents, her family, examples of determination and strength. So let's start reading, and as I read, go ahead and underline key details that would support this, just like we would do in class. After the fight, Min's boss became nicer to her. He urged her several times to consider staying. There was even talk of a promotion to factory floor clerk, though it would not bring an increase in pay. Min resisted. Your factory is not worth wasting my whole youth here, she told her boss. She signed up for a computer class at a nearby commercial school. When there wasn't an overtime shift, she skipped dinner and took a few hours of lessons in how to type on a keyboard or fill out forms by computer. Most of the factory girls believed they were so poorly educated that taking a class wouldn't help. But Min was different. Learning is better than not learning, she reasoned. She phoned home and said she was thinking of quitting her job. Her parents, who farmed a small plot of land and had 3 younger children still in school, advised against it. You always want to jump from this place to that place, her father said. Girls should not be so flighty. Stay in one place and save some money, he told her. Min suspected this was not the best advice. Don't worry about me, she told her father. I can take care of myself. Hopefully you were underlining key details as we went and as I read. Otherwise, just pause right now and look back at your text and underline 3 key details you could use in your Google Doc. Make sure that when you're quoting evidence, though, you're quoting the entire sentence with quotation marks. You're not summarizing what it says. That's not the goal. You're looking for direct text evidence. Okay. Moving on from there, you guys are going to unscramble the main idea, okay? As I read this epilogue, I want you guys to find some key details in there that would help us unscramble the main idea. But first, what is an epilogue? An epilogue is a section or speech at the end of a book that serves as a comment or a conclusion to what happened. Obviously, we want to somehow understand or know where Min's life took her afterwards, but we can't read everything about her life to find out, so maybe an epilogue is helpful for us here because it tells us where her life ended up. In Factory Girls, Min continues to be the breadwinner for her family as she works in various factory and office jobs. According to the book's author, Leslie Chang, Min later married, had 2 children, and saved enough money to buy a car for herself and an apartment for her parents. Speaking on National Public Radio's TED Radio Hour in 2013, Chang explained that migrant workers like Min are driven by the same goals as workers everywhere. They're thinking about their own plans and their own futures, Chang said, and the product they're making is exactly that. It's a product. It's just a tool for their own life and their own future. And why is that so different from a worker anywhere else? So, thinking about her words here and life after working in the factory and her interaction with her parents and how she continued to build upon herself and her goals, you're going to use Min continues to be the breadwinner for her family as she works in various factory and office jobs. And Min later married, had 2 children, and saved enough money to buy a car for herself and an apartment for her parents. To unscramble the main idea here. These are really important key details because it tells us how her life continued on. Obviously, in the last section, she was determined, had so many goals, right? Wanted to continue her education and move out of this factory life. And she became the breadwinner for her family. She also bought an apartment for her parents, even though they weren't supportive of her during this time in her life, right? She married, had children, and she bought a car for herself, meaning she really worked hard for everything she received in life. So I'm going to start the main idea for you to help you out. Min keeps working, provides, So your goal is to use all these words up here to create the main idea. So if you have some Post-its, I highly recommend writing one word on a Post-it and doing that for each of the words and then organizing it on your desk or on the floor, wherever. If not, little pieces of paper would be really helpful, but make sure you're using each of these words. And you're continuing this the way it's written. Min keeps working, provides, So own has a period behind it, meaning that's the last sentence, that's the last word of the summary of the main idea. Min is obviously capitalized, right? We used it at the beginning, but it could have been just for her name. There's a couple of commas here, which is hinting at possibly a list of some sort. So please make sure you're using these the correct way, okay? If you don't get the main idea exactly right, that's okay. Just as long as it's pretty close to what we're looking for as far as summarizing the main idea of this epilogue. Good luck.